So I'm here with another long-form interview with one of our gym's family, and this is Paul Sandles. So people within the group know Paul very well. He's a great individual who regularly interacts at our regular divisional meetings as well, and he's the divisional manager currently for Gyms Diggers Australia, and he also started as a franchise owner in 2013 and is also a regional franchisor, and under the Gyms Diggers banner there is currently 32 working franchise owners in Australia. So thanks for doing this, Paul.
Pleasure, Joel. Thanks for having me.
And now let's get into it. So the first question we always start with this is, what do you think of Jim?
Oh, look, it evolves, doesn't it? I mean, simple answer is I find him very inspiring. He's now a person I talk to almost every week, getting some advice. When I first looked at becoming a franchisee, our divisional at the time was based in Adelaide, and he was at National for other work. And he wanted to meet me here, and I literally met Jim the very first time, even though I was just thinking about joining. I actually got to shake Jim's hand at that point, and I was very nervous, and I was amazed just to meet the man. As a franchisee and franchisor initially, I suppose we banged heads a little bit, but I suppose I can look back on those situations now where we were having discussions, and he was 100% right at the time, and I've now learnt to always take Jim's advice because it is almost always right. But look, now I find him very inspiring, and like I said, someone I really talk to on a fairly regular basis for advice.
That's very interesting to say that, because I asked that question obviously to multiple people, and you said you banged heads at the start, which is different to what everyone else's start. So what did you bang heads about? Was there anything that you can sort of remember? Or
well, basically it's just around franchise support. Okay, when you come on as a franchisor. So again, I started off as a franchisee and bought Victoria and Tasmania, and the franchisees I was then managing were my mates before they were my franchisees, if you like. So we were all sort of franchisees together. And I suppose just how I how to manage that and how to treat them as franchisees, being a franchisor now, was a challenge at the time. And Jim gave me a lot of good advice, mainly around obviously just being stern and fair is the way I look at it now in hindsight. While at the time, I suppose everything went. I suppose I'd let them get away with a lot more than what I do now.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting. Do you think their businesses have improved with that more of a stern approach? Yeah.
No doubt. So we now do a lot of KPI tracking in our business over the last 3 years. So at the time, it was all gut feel what we heard from the franchisees. We'd ask the question during the proactive call, which we do every month, and we'd ask the question, "How you going? You busy?" And they'd say, "Yeah, no, really good. Busy? Yep, no worries at all." And then we had a couple of franchisees fail. So and we did a bit of a 360 review of what went wrong. We got some external people in, and we found out that they were busy, but they were busy doing sort of 3 hours or 4 hours a day. It just wasn't enough. So we then started trying to come up with some KPIs, how we could actually track that and basically monitor that. And we've literally seen our average job value double, the average leads double during that time, conversion go up by 40%. So obviously, once we've identified the issue, we've done a lot of coaching around that, but just being able to benchmark each of the franchisees against their peers and say, look, this is absolutely possible because you've got all these other guys doing it, has really helped us lift the bar. So there's no doubt that, again, using Jim's advice and some good data, we've definitely been able to make the situation a lot better for each of the franchisees.
That's really great to hear that you've identified that problem, actually made a data-based decision to drive business outcomes, which I think is really important. So thanks for that information. So let's get on to how did you actually become involved with gyms as a gyms franchise owner initially, back in 2013, I think it was.
Yes, it was. So look, my background's actually IT, so absolutely completely not much further away than from digging. So I worked for Hewlett Packard for about 8 years, but was in IT for about 20. And I was a transformation project manager, which sounds very fancy, but the role was basically moving clients either in or out of our data centres, or even transitioning from Australian data centres across to overseas data centres. Anyway, long story short, there was very little gratification. Okay, it was if I did a really good job and people turned up on the Monday morning, they wouldn't even notice. That was a good job from our perspective. There was no changes. But also with my daughters, I'd literally driving them to school in the morning. I'd be on a conference call. I'd pick them up from school, and I'd still be on a conference call, and they'd joke and say, "Is that the same call?" And I was just very dissatisfied. The other challenge at the time was HP and IBM were cutting a lot of staff in Australia and North America and Europe, and obviously moving them to cheaper labour places. So it was getting harder and harder to. I was on a contract at that time. And each of the contracts was getting harder and harder. So I felt the time was right. I was also, unfortunately, going through a divorce at the time. and I had my daughters 50-50, so Amy and Beth, hi, love you. So I had to find a job that obviously gave you some flexibility, so I could have them, I could work hard for 1 week and then obviously juggle pickups and all that sort of stuff the following week. So I decided I wanted to become self-employed. I did a lot of analysis and looked at lots of different businesses and did lots of SWOT analysis, and basically got down to construction was the main thing I wanted to look at, because obviously it's something that can't be offshored. And then I looked at excavation. I had done a few developments, owner build developments, and I'd hired some machines before, and I really enjoyed that. And in a nutshell, I did some analysis for lots of different businesses, hotels, bottle shops, suit hire, and they all had some pressure from cheaper imports or from offshore pressures. But you can't import a hole. So from our perspective, it worked really, really well. I looked at, I had other people in the industry, but again, because of my IT background, I just didn't know anything about it. So franchising obviously lent itself to I want to get into the digging. I was looking for franchising for that support. And yeah, I had no idea that gyms even did digging at the time. At the time, diggers had been going for 3 years, but as a division, that is. And yeah, it started from there basically. So, and I really, really enjoyed it. Again, the difference being able to drive past certain houses with the kids and say, I did that and I did that and I did that, was very satisfying compared to what I used to do. Working outside was much better for my health. It was a really, really nice change, and I actually really enjoyed being on the machine.
And that's so interesting you said that. I just want to touch on that, because I've never heard that one before, where you said you looked at what could not be offshored.
Yep.
And you said you can't offshore dig in a hole, which is a great way. You've researched it all on all that sort of stuff, and you've changed from this. So, any advice for people transitioning from a completely unrelated industry into something which you went to diggers? So you had a bit of a passion for that outdoor sort of work. Would that be generic advice? Find something that people maybe got a bit of passion about, and maybe pursue something in that industry, or?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the huge advantages of the gyms group is we have the 50, is it 54?
54.
Keeps growing.
Yeah.
Is there's so many options, and if you talk to the team here, they'll tell you to look at a few different ones and try and find one you are going to be passionate about. I mean, you're going to be doing it every day, and obviously you're in front of customers, so you do need to be passionate about it. So yeah, I think absolutely find something you're going to enjoy, something you can see yourself doing day in, day out. Because you are. So yeah, for me, I look, we're boys with toys. We love having machines, and so that's what appealed to me. But absolutely, you've definitely got to try and find a division that you really can see yourself doing every day. Because yeah, it's important.
Yeah, because I'm just really hooked on that what you said, because it's really interesting to me, because that data analysis background you've got, and you've went through and you've looked at it so much differently. Most people say, oh, for lifestyle, which you've obviously was one component, but you've actually looked at it. What can't come in and disrupt my industry? Yeah. You know, and that was a really unique point of view. Yeah. So let's
also have a look at other industries. I mean, I looked at it, and they weren't disrupted at that point, but I just sort of thought, well, I can see it being disrupted in the future.
Right. That's a really great one, and that's a really good one for anyone who wants to look at the diggers. Maybe they can't be.
That mowing, cleaning,
for sure.
I mean, a lot of our divisions, I think, are the same as well. I mean, you cannot do them offshore. So it is that manual sort of labour, and it's around the home. So
let's talk about that, maybe, because you come from a high corporate job in terms of bit of a fancy sort of wear a suit and all that sort of stuff, and you've gone, and there seems to be a sentiment now where people sort of thumb their nose at the service industry. Whereas we know based on data that's obviously the service industry is where you can make a really good bread and you have a lifestyle. So why do you maybe think that is? And why didn't you, for example?
Well, look, for me, it wasn't just about the money. It was, like I said, it's that lifestyle, getting that balance right and being able to see the girls a lot more. I maintain a good hourly still, so I had a good hourly at Hewlett Packard, but with digging, we do maintain still a good hourly because I've got the machinery, there's a big investment there as well. But again, I wasn't enjoying it. I looked at getting out of IT several times, and this was the one that stuck, I suppose. Yeah, look, you've got to find something you actually enjoy. It really, that's what it comes down to, and you can be passionate about. It was very hard to be passionate about what I was doing at Hewlett Packard because, again, there was no tangibles. I mean, I find it very, very satisfying working in people's backyards and doing a transformation. I mean, there's seeing the customer's face when they come home. Because quite often we try and do it in a day. So we'll do a retaining wall with some turf or whatever it might be. And they'll leave us to our devices for the day, and they'll come back and have the backyard transformed. It's the reactions is very addictive, very addictive.
So let's talk about now your early days as a franchise owner.
Yep.
So you've come out of the corporate environment and now you're in the field, let's say your first couple of weeks. What was that like?
Oh, look, I loved it. I mean, the first month any small business is always the hardest first month. You've obviously got to ramp things up. The advantage of Jim's Group is obviously there's always work already there. So as a new franchisee, you get a larger share of the work that's there. So look, you hit the ground running, which is obviously always a positive. We had really good have got really good franchisees in Victoria, and the guys at the time, we literally have all of them still. The 7 that were there when I started are all still there.
That's great, since 2013.
Yep. So it's a really good bunch of guys, and we support each other a lot. So that's really important as well. How I found the transition, look, I loved it. I mean, it was what I was looking for. There was a bit of a break in between because it took a long time to sort of get machines and that sort of stuff. Look, I love getting outside and working outside. I'd never done it before. So I found that really rewarding. Having some physical activity had some health benefits as well. So look, it was challenging, obviously, making money in the first month because you have that period where you're doing lots of quotes but not a lot of work coming through. And again, we're not selling sub $100 dog washers or cleans or mows. So for us, it's around that sort of $500 mark is our minimum charge. So it's a little bit harder. So you're doing a lot of quotes in that first couple of weeks, don't have a lot coming through, but then it just starts moving from there. And then I just loved every day.
So let's talk a bit about that now, about something, what we call the pay for work guarantee, then, which is there to help you in your when you start up. So maybe you want to talk a bit about more of that from a regional franchisor perspective.
Yeah. So when I became divisional manager, we sort of changed that around a bit. So how it's been done in the past and with other divisions is you offer a lot of free jobs. So if it's a mow, a clean, or a dog wash, you offer a free wash because you're looking for that repeat work, you get that regular job. Doesn't quite work with us. So when I came on board, we offered discounts. So it was $100 off for each job. Our pay for work guarantee is $1,500 per week. So to get the $1,500, you needed 3 or 4 jobs, or to claim on it to get the $100 discount, you needed 3 or 4 jobs anyway. And by the time you had those, you had your minimum pay for work. So when I came on board as divisional, we sort of changed it around. Now you can literally earn your $1,500 without even turning the machine on, because what you do is get paid to do marketing, okay, to go out and meet other gyms franchisees, which is a huge resource for us. We can talk to fencers, handyman, all the mowers. So going out and meeting those guys, we pay our guys to do that. We pay them to go to meetings. We pay them to obviously meet other builders. We pay them to put out coreflute signs, letterbox drops, all that sort of stuff. Now, no one in the metros have ever claimed pay for work, but we're now moving into regional areas, and that's worked really, really well for those guys where we haven't had that excess amount of work, where we're establishing ourselves in that market. So in those areas, that's where the pay for work is really, really important. So in the first couple of weeks, you can actually go out there, hit the pavement with the marketing, earn your $1,500, get a few jobs along the way, and it's all sort of complements from there. So look, the pay for work when I started was a huge value add. I probably didn't analyse it enough in the contract to understand it before I signed the contract. But now, when I'm talking to people, I make sure they really, really understand how it works, because it's a bit easier now, but it's really, really important you understand that there are things you have to do. It's not just $1,500 each week and stay in bed. I mean, we literally pay our guys $20 to get out of bed by 8 o'clock, be in their uniform, and be at a Bunnings or a supply place, and just literally handing out cards. So it's very, very easy to earn. But we've changed a bit where you can do marketing materials.
Do you find that's one of the biggest appeals for people, obviously made in transition from
Absolutely.
Full-time employment, obviously earning wages, to obviously the pay for work guarantee? But the difference with the gyms one is we're actually paying you to build your business.
Absolutely.
And as you said, it's not just the handout of cash, it's literally go out and do marketing materials. For you guys, it's different, obviously. It's not the jobs, it's more about building your business, talking to builders or talking to other franchisees, proving that you do it, and you'll obviously, then that work will come back down the track and then away they go.
Totally. I think absolutely. I mean, anyone going into a small business and making that transition from a regular paycheck to having to earn it every week, it's a leap. It's a leap of faith, and I think the pay for work really makes that it's more of a step than a leap, because if you've got rent, mortgage payments, whatever, you've got that $1,500 per week. It varies from division to division, but ours is $1,500. So you're going to have that money coming in. So it's, again, you've got to do some things for it. It's actually very, very easy to earn.
Yeah. So let's talk about now, you touched on regional areas there for a second before. Let's actually touch about what you're doing with regional areas and all that sort of stuff. And you've obviously saying that obviously you need to build up the regional areas, and they're doing the pay for work guarantee to build up that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So we're in every mainland capital, and doing really, really well. We say no to more franchise inquiries than we say yes to. Okay, it's a balance of, obviously, because of the pay for work guarantee. I'm not sure people know, but that comes out of the franchisor's pocket. So it really makes sure that when the franchisor says yes to you, that they are absolutely 100% confident that you're going to succeed. Because if they're not, you're handing out a lot of money on a fairly regular basis. So in the past, regional areas have been very, very hard. I mean, there's obviously no build up. There's smaller areas. We're not like mowing, cleaning, which are very successful in the regional areas. We get a lot of repeat work. We get repeat work, but it's not consistent work. It's not every month, every 6 weeks, whatever, with some of the other divisions. So you've constantly got to be reliant on leads. You've got to make sure those leads are coming through. So in the past, we've been very reluctant to get into the regionals, but now we've got, like I said, 32 franchisees. Our national spend is a lot more than obviously what it's been in the past, but also by changing the pay for work, it's much easier for those guys to enter because they know they've got the money coming through. They're not waiting. In the past, you get a discount on that job, but you needed the jobs first. We've got a new guy in Newcastle who's going really, really well and has obviously earned some pay for work, but it's just supplementing the work that he's getting, which is great. So
you're looking for more guys in regional areas, obviously.
It's a big push for us now. Yeah, again, certain regionals. I mean, again, we obviously aim for the bigger regionals.
Which sort of regions are you targeting?
So we're looking for another one in Geelong, Wollongong, Sunshine Coast, Newcastle, obviously we've already got. Albury, Bendigo. But we've got one in Ballarat. So it's those sort of larger centres. Again, our plan is obviously make sure we've really refined and we've got that model down really well for the regionals, and then we can start to move into some other areas.
But people watching interested in those sort of areas can be confident, can be rest assured that obviously that pay for work guarantee is there, and you're going to actually help them promote that business in, let's say, if it's Geelong, to get going. Obviously, once the quotes and all the jobs start flowing from, away they go.
Absolutely. I mean, there's other franchise models out there that'll just take your money. I mean, with Jim's group, you've got the pay for work guarantee, and it's really important. It doesn't go for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. It goes until you've had 250 leads in our system. So if we're not generating work for you, that can go for 2 years. So
it's in your best interest.
That's 160 grand. So you're paying $33,000 for a franchise. If we're not generating work for you, you're going to get potentially $160,000 in pay for work. So the point there is that the franchisor will only take you on if they are 100% confident that you will succeed, because they will probably be losing a lot more money than you because they've had to pay it out along the way.
Let's talk about marketing now.
Yep.
Obviously, you're very hands-on with your marketing from what I know. So maybe you want to talk about some strategies and what you actually do for new franchisees and for the franchisees who are currently within the Jim Stiggers division.
Look, because of my IT background, I do like to lift the hood up and understand how it all works. And you and I love the changing new medias. So look, we spend most of our money on Google, at Google AdWords, which is great, but and also Facebook, but most of it's on Google. But we're all trying new things now. So we've obviously tried radio, we've tried limited print, but also things like YouTube is really, really successful for us as well now. So we've actually run TV campaigns in the past. We find that's not very good value, but we've got the content there. So we're now running ads on YouTube, and we find that's really, really successful for us as well. So it's a really good way to hit a national audience. For a very, very low cost.
Well, you're doing a multi-channel approach, right? You're trying a little bit of everything to keep yourself in front of mind, depending on where they are and what medium it is.
And again, I do love the data. So look, and again, the great thing about most of these platforms is you get a lot of data back on what the conversion rate is. So you can actually see, okay, I've paid this much, I've got this many conversion clicks through to the website. Now, every one of those won't come through as a lead potentially, but we know which ones are working, which ones aren't. So again, the new platforms are awesome as far as data goes. So as far as regionals go, yes, again, the ability for us to fence in and say we're only in Newcastle, we're only going to pay for clicks in this area of Newcastle, in this area for Facebook, and this area for YouTube, means the dollars can be very, very focused.
And the difference with Jim's is you're very transparent with your data. So if they ask about where the money's being spent and all that sort of stuff, you can just go, yep, there you go. Yep. That's what's happening and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. So we have to be transparent. So every year we have to obviously release a marketing report. So each franchisee pays money into a marketing fund, which has to be spent on marketing. It used to be we could spend it on a Christmas party, but not anymore. It's just purely marketing. But it's really, really good because you've got that report, but obviously I lift up the hood and show the guys into Google AdWords and into Google Analytics as well, so they can see where our traffic's going to the website and actually see that we're getting this much from AdWords, this much from organic, this much from direct, etc., etc. So I think it really helps them to understand the marketing, because local area marketing is obviously a huge part of every franchisee's role. you can't just sit back there and wait for the work to come in. You do have to market in your local area. And understanding how that traffic then comes through to us, I think helps them make better decisions on local area marketing activity as well.
So how does a franchisor help them do the LAM, the local area marketing, in the early days? Because some people might not be that confident with it.
Yep.
So maybe do you want to talk about the franchisor's role to help a new franchisee get going in an area?
So you come to, obviously, Jim's group for the generic training, and obviously they touch on the local area marketing there as well. And I sat through that last week, just at the back of the room, and that's fantastic. We then spend another half day during our 3 days of divisional training on local area marketing as well, and we target it. But we have an intranet, so it's a Google intranet, but basically any of the franchisees can log into that intranet and download, obviously, letters we've used for previous marketing campaigns. They can download flyers that we've used in the past. They can download colouring in competitions we've used. So we just make it all available to them at any point. So they can type in any keywords in our intranet, and they can get all the collateral there. So compared to starting up yourself, you've got to go out and pay for all that collateral, get it produced, and that takes time and money. I think that's one of the things the franchisor does, is make them aware that what exists. But also what we try and do is help them by saying this is what's worked in the past. Okay, by all means try things new, but the great advantage of buying into a franchise system is you don't have to learn everything from your mistakes. You can learn from the people who've gone before you. So again, as a past franchisee, and I've still got machines. I still get out there every once in a while, not often enough. I'd like to be out there more. We know what we have to go through, and I suppose being able to lean on that experience is a huge leg up as a new business versus having to go out there and trying to learn Google AdWords, trying to learn how to do Facebook. It's all done for you. And again, we've got lots of videos on how to do certain things as well on the internet. Now,
do you think having that obviously helped? Do you think you could have made a go of it as an independent? Say, for example, you just started up your own, let's say Paul Sandles, excavation, whatever. How do you think you would have gone, honestly, back in the day if you went independent worse the Jim's rate?
Look, you'll never know, but I think I would have failed, to be honest. I mean, we have a lot of people who come to us looking to buy a franchise who have been seriously struggling as independents. I mean, a lot of people think you can just go and buy the equipment. It's a big investment, and then advertise in the local paper, wherever it might be, and the work will come. You've just got to be, you have to be bigger than that. And unfortunately, with marketing these days, it usually goes down to the person with the biggest spend. I mean, what comes up in Google now is the people who are spending the 5 most people who are spending the most money. So it's very hard for an independent to, I suppose, match that. What I tell my potential franchisees and obviously new franchisees is where our big advantage is people see the gyms, they see the diggers in the logo, so they now associate the Jim's brand with the digger's service, but they know the phone number, they know the websites, so they can get hold of us very, very easily. In comparison, as an independent, you're driving down the road and cars going the other way, and they say, I need someone to dig some holes, and 042 and it's gone.
Yeah.
You just can't catch it. So I think you would really struggle. One of the huge advantages of the Jim's group is the infrastructure, the fact that we almost all have the same 131546 number, and people know that number. Okay, they associate the head with the number. They might not know we do diggers, even though we've been doing it for 8 years now. But when they are looking for that and they see one of the trucks or the utes go by, they associate the Jim's brand with the digger's service, and they know how to get hold of us.
So it's an interesting thing you just want to touch on real quickly is about you've actually had existing independent digger business then come and transition over.
Yep, absolutely.
So how did those businesses go post that transition?
Much better.
Yeah,
much better. And they tell you exactly the same thing. I mean, in any business you're in, obviously the biggest challenge is getting work. As an independent, you've got to continually generate that within Jim's group. We are very fortunate that we have excess work. With obviously different divisions, the unserviced varies, but in diggers we're about 40% unserviced leads
40%
around Australia.
Right.
So that varies from region to region, but nationally we're at 40%. So in most areas, guys can step in and there's work ready to go. And that's in some areas that's without any marketing. That's simply just the brand. I think diggers is very fortunate that we get a bit of overflow from mowing. So there might be mowers there, but for example, we do turf preparation, and obviously we do post holes. We do other things around in the backyard. And some people don't even know what service they're asking for in particular. They just call the 131546 number and say, I want this done. So I think we get a lot of overflow from mowing, which is very, very fortunate.
Let's talk about more about the services and equipment now. Just maybe let people know, right, they might have an interest. Let's say come from you with an IT background and this sounds like something I want to get interested in. Maybe you want to talk about some of the actual equipment that you guys use.
Yep. So look, we have big, small, and everything in between. there's no perfect machine, so what we try and do is get that balance. Instead of everyone having lots of different machines and having low utilisation, we try and get a bit of a mix with different franchisees having different equipment. So over half the guys have trucks, tipper trucks, but we have had guys who've been around for a very long time just operating with a machine on a trailer and a ute. So, and that's how most guys start up, but they will move on to a truck. As far as machinery goes, we have excavators and skid steers or little bobcats. That'll literally go through that doorway, right up to sort of 3-ton machines as well. So, and again, like I said, everything in between. So that we do focus on skid steers and excavators. We also do service location now. So it's where you're going to do a project. It might not even be using us, but if you're going to do a fence or whatever it might be, and you know you've got services coming into the property, we can locate the gas, electricity, water, etc., etc. It's a really good value add for our guys, but obviously it's also a standalone service. And right down to things like horizontal boring now as well, where we can actually horizontally bore under a driveway or under a footpath. So, and look, we're always adding to that as well. There's no perfect machine, so every time we get a new franchisee on board, again, a lot of them actually already have the equipment. They've been those independents and struggled. They'll come on board with new equipment, and we'll see how we can maximise that as well. So,
Do you find a lot of blokes share equipment? Obviously, if they might go do a quite of a job and they don't have that equipment, they can call on someone else, or
they definitely share. They share resources, so
Yep.
that so a lot of our guys employ people as well. So they might say, grab that machine and that worker and go to that job, or the franchisees might. I've been to one job where we actually had 3 franchisees on the one job. So they'll actually not so much share the job. You'll have a prime, but then the other franchisees will sub. So that absolutely works, and that's much better for these guys. So instead of investing in 4 or 5 machines and having a say 20-30% utilisation, they're having 1 or 2 machines, and we really push them very hard to make sure the utilisation is very high before they start investing in more. So the fact that within our group, they can lean on other guys to fill any gaps that might be there, really helps. And look, I don't know any other organisation that I suppose is as large and as coordinated as us around Australia. So there's lots of large civil companies, but they're usually centrally based and normally project based. But for the mum and dad and small builder market, we're probably the largest, most coordinated organisation in Australia now.
You've touched on some services before, so let's actually just expand upon all the services maybe that you can recall off the top of your head that you actually do. I know there's a lot of them, but I just want to talk about them because obviously people might just think it's just digging a hole or digging a trench or whatever.
Yep.
But obviously, clearly, it's not as you said. You can find services, you can do boring, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to expand on as many as you can for us.
So look, I know I'm off by heart. So, we have narrow access. So particularly if you're going through a door, and obviously not into a house, but it's amazing how many houses these days where the only access to the backyard is via a pedestrian door, then down the side of the house. So we have narrow access jobs. We have trenching for services. So if you're trenching to lay some cabling or some piping, whatever it might be. Then we have obviously trenching for using excavation. So you might be doing some footings for a house or digging a hole to bury a horse. You'd be amazed how many calls of that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we get a lot of those. Because they're big holes. Obviously, levelling, soil removal, bringing in materials. So someone might be doing a renovation at the back, if you like, or doing over their backyard, and they'll bring in some topsoil, they'll bring in some mulch, just moving materials. Like I said, we do the service location. We do the horizontal boring. Obviously, post holes as well. So post holes for fencing. We do post holes for retaining walls, decks, for builders as well when they're doing houses on stumps. That's pretty much it.
So there's a lot of cross-divisional stuff, and I'm just thinking of like handyman, mowing, fencing could use you guys, and you obviously do work together as well. So that's another benefit of obviously being a part of gyms. Which
absolutely, and again, because obviously our franchisees have access to all of their franchisees' numbers and vice versa, it works really well. And again, because we're all usually working in a small area. It works really well. You end up working well with these guys and they become good mates.
So let's now talk about what makes a good Gyms Diggers franchisee to you. Because obviously you said you don't put on everyone, which is great.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of selection process involved. So what are the traits or what are you looking for as a Gyms Diggers franchise owner?
We're really looking for people who have a fairly high attention to detail. I mean, it's to be a successful small business person in our industry. I mean, digging a good hole is great, but it's all the other stuff that really counts. So being good at the back end, being good at the local area marketing, following up your clients and making sure you've got a high conversion is really important. So we've got plenty of leads coming through, but we don't want to be, I suppose, wasting those. But the other big thing we see is the guys who are very, not so much mechanical, but very careful with their machines. They clean the machines often. They're obviously getting them serviced on a regular basis, and they know their machines well. Versus the guys that bash them around and not checking things. makes a big difference. I mean, some of those machines, if you don't look after them, I mean, an engine might cost $6,000 to $8,000 to replace. And just regular maintenance makes a big difference. The guys who are easy on their machines makes a big difference as well. So most of our skid steers run on tracks, and those tracks can last anywhere from 500 hours to 1,000 hours and cost about $4,000 to replace. So the guys who are gentle on their machines will obviously make their running costs and their maintenance costs go a lot further. And they add up. Okay, so again, we teach them obviously how to dig holes straight, dig trenches straight. They normally get that mastered fairly quickly. The guys who really do well are the guys who obviously embrace our systems, are taking on the right amount of leads, and doing the right follow-up and the back end stuff. You've really got to be managing the back end as much as you are the front end.
So let's now talk about the actual training component itself then, because you've come from a completely unrelated industry. So obviously we do the 3-day generic training here. Then what do they do after that? What's the sort of support and training you provide?
So we do 3 to 4 days, depending on whether they've got experience. So it's there's a fair bit of PowerPoint in that. So we obviously go through workplace health and safety. We go through our systems that we use for quoting, et cetera. We go through how to quote a job. Okay, so that's one of the hardest bits, is getting that quote right. You can't be under, can't be over. And then the guys who are fairly raw, we'll get them out on their machine well before they get in front of the customer, and play around the machine. They also get 2 days of, they get a ticket, so to speak, which is an industry ticket. Most of the machines that we have don't require that, but we feel it's really good check to make sure it's just that extra bit of training to make sure they go through that and they are that little bit more competent. Again, we obviously advertise all our guys are licensed. So for these machines, some of them don't have to be licensed, but it just goes to that whole thing that we do sell, that all our guys are police checked, licensed, fully insured, etc. Then we spend 2 weeks with them on the road. So that's a mix of spending time with existing franchisees, spending time with me in that first area, getting all the systems set up, and then obviously getting what we have mentors. Any franchisee who's been on with us for more than 5 years, they're a mentor, and we'll get different guys to go through their business over that first 2 week period to basically help them up.
That's great. It's it sounds like a really full-on sort of course, which is great. So anyone can be rest assured they're coming from a completely unrelated industry like yourself and has a passion for maybe this sort of stuff, that they're going to have all that full training, and you've just disclosed everything that's involved. So maybe let's now talk about the costs that are involved. So everyone will go, well, how much, or whatever. So maybe do you want to just talk in real sense about how much does it actually really cost to go from, let's say, getting out of employment cycle into actually day one as a Jim's Diggers franchisee? Yeah,
look, it's a really good question, and unfortunately it's sort of...
It can be very different.
How much does a car cost? Because we are dealing with machines, it really is like that. So like I said, a lot of guys will come on board with a ute, and they might come on board with a truck. It doesn't have to be new, so a lot of the guys will come on board with a second-hand ute. So that can obviously vary anywhere from $20,000 to... We've got one guy who's bought his dream ute when he bought this business for over $70,000. So trucks obviously again vary. You wouldn't want to be spending much less than $30,000, $40,000 on a truck, up to $70,000, $80,000 for a brand new truck. And again, machinery also varies depending on the size and the type of machines. The standard package, to answer the question more directly, is around $60,000 for the machine, and that's with trailer, with post hole diggers, with a trencher. So it's going to cover most of our services, and also most of the leads that we do get. Okay, that covers about 80% of the leads that we get. Is going to cost you around $60,000. We get the finance arranged through the manufacturers. We don't really get involved there, mainly because the manufacturers can get better rates than what we can at the minute. They get really good rates. And then obviously the franchise fee, it really depends on obviously the size of the territory you're looking to get, and obviously the where you are. So we do charge a little bit more in metro and a little less in regionals as well, trying to reflect the extra, I suppose, work that the regional guys have to go. The startup cost is $13,200. That's a fixed cost. But they're the sort of costs that you're going to have to go into with any new business. So it's the training, all the training we spoke about. It's uniforms, it's all your PPE, all your safety stuff. It is your tickets. It is getting the vehicles fully signed up, so we make sure our vehicles look.
They do look really good. Yeah, the Jim's Diggers ones look really good.
So we spend a bit of money on that for that reason. It's your uniforms, your stationery, etc. So it's all the things you would normally have to do. And I think a lot of people, when they go into their own business, skimp on that sort of stuff. They'll get a very 20-point font, their name and their mobile number underneath, and no one can really see it. We literally cover our utes in as much signage as possible, because our research says it's one of our best forms of marketing. It definitely is the best form of marketing for that individual franchisee, because they're driving around that area they want to work, and it happens to generate more work in that area.
So. And obviously, the cost varies. So if you are an independent business already who wants to make the transition, it's going to be less.
Yes, absolutely.
However, if you're someone from a completely different industry, that's sort of more of the cost they're probably looking at, is what you were just sort of saying there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, it's an answer. We can give a straight answer to that question within about 5 minutes on the phone,
Which is great, yeah.
So once we know where you are, what you've got already, if you've got tickets, some of that obviously drops the price. We can give you a very firm answer within 5 minutes.
Can people come out for trial day with you guys?
Absolutely.
Just to see what it's like?
Absolutely. We encourage that. We love that. And look, we've got a great bunch of franchisees. They love sharing their time and their knowledge as well. So look, I think most divisions encourage that, and we're absolutely exactly the same. It really gives you a good idea of the type of jobs we do as well. And I love the jobs we do. It's very rare you'll have 3 jobs the same, or even 2 jobs the same in the same week. They're always very, very different challenges. So getting the guys out and seeing that we're not just moving dirt from here to here is fantastic. There's always a lot of problem solving, which really makes the day go quicker. And again, you get that satisfaction at the end. There's usually a project, you're part of a project, so you do get that satisfaction as well. So to answer your question, absolutely, we love getting potential franchisees out with existing franchisees.
Now, basically, let's just talk a little bit about maybe what an average day looks like for a franchisee. I know it can be very different depending on the job, but what is it, like a 2 to 3 jobs they can do a day, or depending on it, maybe 1 job, or is there a quoting process, or what's the average sort of day look like for someone?
So we again in our coaching, we normally say, look, you need to probably try and aim to bill 6 hours each day, and then 2 hours to do all your back end stuff, quoting, etc., etc. Okay, you can't just keep doing 8 hours, 9 hours on the tools, because then you're going to go through this up and down. You're going to have a great week, then you can have a really quiet week. So by all means, you might have 2 or 3 days where you have to spend the 8 hours, but then you need to allocate some time to following up your quotes, taking on a few extra leads, etc., etc. So the average day is usually basically sort of between 7 and 8, getting yourself organised, making sure you've got skip bins arranged, materials arranged, etc., etc. Normally on site by 8 o'clock, and then you're working through till sort of 3 o'clock. And then the 3 to 5, when you're heading home, again, you're dropping off the equipment you've hired, and ideally going out and doing a few more quotes along the way home to try and fill up the following week. Our average job is around $2,000. It's a multi-day job. And so to get to that 2,000, some of the guys are doing 5-day jobs, but also we've got our minimum hire jobs, which might be just for holes for a front fence, or like I said, holes for a retaining wall, etc., etc.
So what's the best way for someone to take some action, actually do is just give 131556 a call, or the Jim Stiggers website, obviously lodge an inquiry, and speak to the franchisor, and obviously they can come out for a trial day, which you encourage, which is really good. So
correct.
What can they expect on a trial day? They just come out for the franchisee and just basically follow them around, or what happens?
Look, again, we've got our guys all love to talk. We've got a great bunch of guys. They'll talk. They'll probably let the guys on the machines, not in the tighter areas, but if it's just again, a lot of guys come to us because they're not sure which machine to get as well. So they say, do I get a Vermeer? Do I get a ditch witch? Do I get a Kanga? Do I get a Bobcat? There's Terex. There's so many different machines, and which they say, which one do you recommend? I said, it's a personal choice. I mean, if you're 6'2", you don't want to be having a Terex or a Bobcat because it's really tight and you're really confined. So you're more inclined to get a machine that's where you stand on the back of it. The controls between a Terex, a Vermeer and a Kanga are completely different. And so some people's head can get around the joystick controls on a Vermeer, while other guys are more happy with the levers on a Kanga. So we always get the guys to try and just have a quick little go on a couple of different types of machines before they make that decision. So they'll usually get a go on the machines. They'll talk to the guys and they'll ask exactly what you asked. What's a traditional day? They'll always ask the common questions: how much you're making and that sort of stuff, and I'll give out honest answers as well. And then ideally, if they normally sort of leave before the quoting stage, but the guys will explain that then the day hasn't finished. When you pack up the machine, the day hasn't finished. And again, that's the difference between a good franchisee and an average franchisee, is they work just as hard for that last 3 hours, doing quotes and follow-up and potentially some local area marketing each day, versus waiting until you're hitting a quiet patch to make sure you've got that consistent work going through. That's
great. And we do encourage people, we need to encourage people more to come to a trial day, because we can put as much information, info packs online, but the best way to do it is just to actually go up to the franchisee, ask them directly all your questions, because they've got nothing to hide. And obviously, the things what you said about how much you're going to make, what does a day look like, that's the stuff that we really want people to take out of this, to come on a trial day. And it's very easy to do. So maybe let's talk a bit more about your lifestyle now, because I think it's very important that people, when they see this, obviously, if they do become a part of the Jim Stiggers family, they're going to obviously be dealing with you a lot. So it's great to know as much about, obviously, outside of work as well. So I know you're a very passionate sailor.
I do. Now, a bit of sailing.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit more about your sailing and how you're involved with that. And then
I actually grew up in the country, so a long way from the ocean or
Where'd you grow up?
In the bay. A place called Woodend, which is lovely now, but 20 years ago it wasn't as nice. Sorry to anyone in Woodend. But I was in the Scouts, and we had a day experience with the Sea Scouts down at Sandringham, and it was blowing fleas off dogs off chains. It was absolutely howling, and no one else really wanted to go out, but these Sea Scouts were going in and out, and I just jumped between boats and just loved it. And I literally got the bug from there, and I was about 12 at the time. I then moved to Melbourne to go to university and joined up a yacht club. Before that, we'd sail during Christmas. Mum and Dad bought a dinghy for me to sail over Christmas holidays and stuff like that. And it's just evolved from there. I mean, it's something I'm very, very passionate about. I really enjoy it. It's getting, obviously, guys and girls together to work as a team, and it only works if you work as a team. It's very similar to business. And I've slowly sort of evolved up to, I suppose, what most people consider the pinnacle of sailing in Australia, which is the Sydney Hobart. I only ever wanted to do one, but I wanted to do it on the best boat in our club. So that was the boat I wanted to do on, and I finally got the call, and I still remember exactly where I was when I got the call from Bruce, and I punched the air, and I was very excited, but I've now done, or this will be my 16th Sydney Hobart this year.
Your 16th?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So, slow learner.
Now, what's your highest place finish?
Second.
You got second?
Which is why we don't stop.
What year was that?
2004 and 2011. So.
And what boat was that on?
A boat called Chutzpah.
Right.
So
there you go. So you want to get first place. You're not going to stop till you get first place?
Well, we're getting older. Unfortunately, after 16, and the owner's done over 40, so we are getting older, but we keep trying until we get first, absolutely.
Well, something I made as a note before, which we talked off camera, which I forgot to mention, which I'm going to mention to you now, was about being a full-time Zor and making that transition to a full-time Zor based on what one of our current divisionals said.
Yep.
So maybe do you want to actually talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so look, like I said, I was on the machine and really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I did enjoy all the things I spoke about. The opportunity came up to buy Victoria and Tasmania, so I did that. And most franchisors are obviously what we call operational franchisors, so they're still running their franchise business as well. And I was doing that. It was all going well. I won an award for support of existing franchisees, so that was all good. I was getting that balance right. But I found recruitment was hard. I mean, it takes a lot of time to recruit franchisees. You've got to travel, you've got to meet them, and multiple meetings, etc. I've had some meetings go for 4 hours with a potential franchisee. They have lots of questions sometimes. And we went to we have a national conference where all the franchisors get together every year. We had that on the Gold Coast. So that would have been 2014. And Sharon Connell, who at the time was Jim's cleaning, basically got up there and spoke, and the difference with her business is when she went full time, when she basically stopped obviously in the cleaning and focused on being a franchisor, the difference it made to that business. And I really took note of that, and lots of other things that she said. She really inspired me at that conference. And I literally got back to Melbourne and sold my machine. So I literally had no choice but to focus on the development and the growth of the franchisor business. And it was the best thing I ever did. It really was. So I added 2 franchisees in the first 12 months, and I added another 5 in the following 6 months after going full time. So Victoria's a large, and Tasmania's a large region, so I'm not saying every franchisor should go and do that, but you've got to find that right balance. And to my guys who I manage, franchisors, I do say to them, you've got to be taking at least half a day every week where you're off the tools. And dedicating it to being a franchisor.
That's interesting. So you actually literally just forced yourself. You said, I've got to sell the machine, and you had no choice but to make it work.
Yep.
Which was quite interesting. That was based on what Sharon Connell, obviously, who we had on one of these interviews before.
Yep.
And that was very interesting to hear that you said that to me before, because a lot of Zors like keeping that business going because obviously it's great. It's great money as well, and they can sort of do both. But you want to make the full-time jump to the regional franchisor. Now, as a regional franchisor, maybe for people who don't know much about regional franchisors from outside the group, can you maybe just tell in your own words what you think a regional franchisor is and what they do?
The main role of a regional franchisor is to support the existing franchisees. I mean, to ensure that they are happy and successful. Okay, so again, we get surveyed every year. And that survey, we have awards, which is great to get the awards, but the downside to the survey is if your survey results aren't high enough, you can actually be terminated and lose your region. So I've got to say that the number one role of a franchisor is to make sure the franchisees are content, and obviously that's monthly calls. We have to have a proactive call with the franchisees every month contractually. Again, the advice from Jim is that you do that try and do that every week. And again, the research tells us that the franchisees that are contacted more are more successful. I try and get to see my franchisees on site at least every couple of months. It gives you a chance to obviously inspect the machinery, have a chat to them, and see a lot more than just what you can see over the phone. Again, my experience with the franchisee who failed, I relied too heavily on what he was saying over the phone, and I find getting on site really, really helps. It's good for the relationship as well to get out there. But then again, on the other things you've got to do as a franchisor is make sure the marketing's happening as well. So one of the things you need to make sure is that there's plenty of work coming through for the franchisees as well. So there's that marketing hat that you've got to wear, there's a support hat. And then as far as your franchisor business goes, the success of your franchisor business, expansion is absolutely critical. I think a lot of franchisors worry about the number of unserviced leads that are there, but and it took me some time to get my head around this, that you think, okay, I can't add too many more franchisees because it'll take away from the existing guys. But research has shown me with my own numbers, and I've heard it from other people within Jim's group, that the more franchisees you add, all it does is actually just grow the pie, and actually makes it easier for the existing franchisees as well, because it actually grows it by a larger factor than just that one extra franchisee. It's one extra vehicle driving around, it's more money we're spending on marketing, and has a bigger impact, positive impact, than just the leads that we need to generate for that one franchisee.
Now, where do you see Jim's Diggers in the next maybe couple of years or 5 years? What's your plan to take the division forward? What are you trying to do, or what's your ultimate vision for Jim's Diggers?
Well, look, we'd like to be top 10 divisions, so basically crack 100 within 3 years.
Really?
Yep.
So currently we're thinking we're 32?
Yep.
So 100 within 3 years, okay.
Yep.
We've got it on camera, all right.
Yes, you've got it on camera, so goals have got to be aspirational.
Yeah.
But I also think achievable. I mean, we've been working fairly hard on getting more franchisors on board as well. Okay, so we've been growing the pool of franchisors, and again, look, now we feel we've got the model much better for regional areas. That allows us to expand there as well. We're not in New Zealand, so we plan to be in New Zealand by appointing a franchisor, not managing it from here. But we are also already talking to some people in New Zealand.
So there's a great opportunity there for anyone, right?
Yes,
cool.
yep. And the people we are talking to, hurry up, because we are.
Yeah.
Look, the divisions that have gone over there have had some success. The brand is well recognised in New Zealand already.
We've got 9 there doing
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. So, and I've already spoken to potential franchisees over there, and we've said, look, no, we want a franchisor on the ground first. It really, again, it comes down to you've got to have successful franchisees, and you've got to make sure the models and the support infrastructure is there. So we're not going to take on franchisees in New Zealand until we've got the franchisor there. So like I said, we're continuing those conversations. So a combination of, like I said, going more regional, having more franchisors to support the local franchisees, but also help with local recruitment, and going to New Zealand. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've grown by 25% in the last 12 months. So if we keep that going, obviously the numbers keep getting bigger, but as a percentage, it's achievable.
So that's where your targets basically come from. Looking at that data, your 25%, you've basically extrapolated and go, yep, cool, I can get to 100. And
well, we also look at other divisions, and we look at a division like fencing, which has a higher job value than us, has less probably repeat work than what we do, and they're over 100 franchisees, and we think, well, it's possible. I think when you have another division, this is the great thing about Jim's group. There's always other people to lean on and learn from, who have been ahead of you. So fencing's been going for I think 21 years. So we can learn from them, and we know it's possible. So we look at where their franchisees are, and we say, well, we know we can go get someone there because we feel our model at least stacks up equally to fencing, if not better. So they're at 120, I think.
Yep.
So we believe the target is aspirational, but absolutely achievable.
That's great, and I think you can do it based on what you said. And obviously, you sound like you've obviously got a really solid foundation now, and that now you can really push. You've got the regional areas you're going to target. You've obviously got New Zealand, so I wish you luck in it. And I hope we've got it on camera as well. So with growth clauses, and Jim can watch it back and say, there we go, there's 100.
Exactly.
So, but all good. But I appreciate your time at this point. I appreciate your transparency, and obviously you talk really well, which is great, which was to have you on. And you're really transparent, and this is a great version of an info pack. So anyone who's watching this, thinking of Jim's Diggers, Paul's the man. Paul's going to be around for a long time, and Paul's obviously a great leader of the division, and you're in really good hands with Paul for Jim's Diggers, or for anyone as a Jim's franchise. To learn more about Jim's Diggers and actually take some action and come out for a trial day. You've heard from Paul yourself that one of the great things to do is to come out for a trial day. So that'll be 131546, or it's jimdiggers.net.au.
.com.au.
So www.jimsdiggers.com.au or 131546. But we encourage you, if you just are thinking about it, come out for a trial day. Paul's just told you everything that you probably need to ever know to make that decision, whether it's a wife or a husband watching this, the partner. Rest assured, Paul's your man, and they've got a great one there. So please take action, and we encourage you along. And thank you for doing that, Paul. We appreciate your time, and
Pleasure, Joel.
hopefully
Thanks
people
for
take
having me,
action. No worries. Thank you.